Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Carrington Peterson, and we are Team 10, and we would like to welcome you to our presentation, Reviralize, bringing new life to your back catalogs.
So for our presentation, we created a business-to-business consulting agency called Reviralize, which will bring new life to catalog music. First, let's start with some definitions. The industry standard for a catalog music is anything that is older than 18 months. Copyright ownership means value. If you own the copyright, you can leverage it through various means, including reproduction, distribution, public performance, covers, as well as display the work publicly. So first, let's start with the current state of catalog. At least $5 billion was spent on catalog music and music rights acquisitions in 2021, according to Music Business Worldwide. Companies that made acquisitions in the past year include Warner, Sony, and Concord, as well as individual catalogs sold by artists and songwriters like Bruce Springsteen did when he made a deal with Sony Music Group. The state of catalog, according to MRC data, when they issued their end of year report in January, this past January, MRC data issued its end of year report with numbers for catalog versus current consumption, which has increased year over year since 2020 by over 100 million. MRC data says that 69.8% of catalog share belongs to like the total kind of stream or amount of music that's being streamed in the United States. So we are presenting a case study of two artists, one current and one catalog artist. Our current artist is Måneskin, who's a glam and alternative and pop rock band from Rome, Italy, influenced by 1970s rock. Our catalog artist is INXS, a new wave and dance rock band from Sydney, Australia, popular in the 1980s and 90s. We selected our rock for our case study because of not only the recent trend of Billboard Hot 100 tracks featuring guitar, like the ones you see on the screen, as well as a 12.2% increase in total consumption of rock. Måneskin is successful in leveraging their social media as a tool for promotion, and due to this resurgence in rock, INXS is well positioned to make a resurgence.
So with this, we wanted to first get an understanding of the demographics that Måneskin and INXS currently are relating to. And we see here through this quick demographic breakdown, Måneskin very obviously has a large female representation and large representation within the Gen Z audience. INXS a little bit less so, but through our next slide here, we wanted to kind of outline what we think could tie these two groups together into the modern realm. So first, we want to understand why these things are coming back. And through what we just talked about rock's resurgence, we wanted to understand what the vibe that they're generally connotating here and why that's going so well and what trends we can see. So we took a look at songs related to Måneskin's current catalog through Chartmetrics API and sort of their related recommendation system, pulled 40 songs from there. And then we went using Museo's API to understand the general mood and tone of these songs. So we saw there's a lot of powerful messaging, very exciting messaging, and also just the general energy level for these records is very high, which through our previous research, we can see that in the rock genre specifically, this is maybe underrepresented in the listenership for Gen Z. It's something they haven't maybe heard too much throughout their adolescence. So this could be attributed to this rise recently. And another thing we want to look at here as well is how both digital and physical cultural staples can cause extreme rise for both new and legacy acts, as we can see here with Måneskin and their Eurovision 2021 win, and what that did for creating an instant peak, as well as a significant long tail showing that there's a lasting effect for these cultural staples. And a similar thing was observed for INXS as well with their Euphoria placement for an episode there. So where do we want to go with this? We want to go with the route of merging the content of both of these groups together, encouraging collaborations through, for example, podcast content, interview content as well, where you could cover a current artist such as Måneskin, utilizing the theme and general songs in excess to kind of bring them into the current foray. In addition to that, something that we noticed specifically on TikTok with regards to archive accounts, they kind of bring back that nostalgia that we know is booming in the current market for young audiences that want to learn more and yearn for previous times they didn't experience. We want to push NXS's music into that, in addition to partnering with a group like Måneskin for content there. And to quickly close things off and kind of tie a bow on this, really this case study is demonstrating where we want to specifically target connecting the audience, artists, and the attributes that tie both the new and legacy acts together for the purposes of new content and remixing that. Additionally, with this particular research that we did, there are strong limitations for the size of the initial training data. In addition to that, obviously, we recognize with the way the music industry is set up, there could be limitations for collaborations that are across different labels. And additionally, we would want a significantly larger data set to try to think of a more genre agnostic solution here. So for the proposed next steps here, we would want to create a larger scale data algorithm analyzing moods as they currently come back into current markets, and then also potentially creating a recommendation engine that would connect to a label's previous back catalog and seeing where they can mix and match content with new songs that are currently popping. And that sort of closes things off. I really appreciate everybody's time for this. We are now going to open it up for some questions.
All right, amazing. Thank you guys so much. Our judges, you only have time for 3 questions. You can raise your hand or you can just bring yourself up on the screen if you want to ask a question. Mary, I see it. Go ahead.
Hi. How is your company going to help labels, publishers get their catalog songs moved on short form platforms? You're showing the correlation of like, okay, there's presence of a certain decade or style, but how are you going to push their priority catalogs into the ecosystems?
Yeah, I could touch on that a little bit. I think through our sort of consultancy model, whether we're doing in-house content creation that sort of takes those nostalgic trends that we do recognize are coming back into the foray. One that I would specifically point to here for NXS is the great numbers we saw for both the 80s and 90s aesthetics hashtags on TikTok, where there are people creating a lot of archival content. They're pulling old footage into new TikTok songs and things. But we also recognize that if we put in NXS's music in that specific example, that would be how we would bring it into the current eyes of the youthful audience. And we think that through blending in the older content of NXS with newer artists such as Måneskin, blending those together because of the energies they both radiate, we think that that will connect well with the audience, just as long as the visual content is compelling enough, playing into that nostalgia piece. So a little bit of that is going to be like creative content creation, but initially with the next steps that I discussed, there would be a lot of work done around creating a sort of recommendation engine, pairing those things together.
Can I have a follow-up question? Sorry. So then are you encouraging your partners to have budget for influencers because the artists are most likely inactive or they're no longer with us or their estates are overseeing their songs? So how are you going to drive those creations? And then is the onus on the monetary side coming from that label partner? That makes sense.
That does make sense. I do think that there would be significant, or not significant, but a certain amount of budget allocated to kind of going back to that archive creators examples, because these people, they curate old nostalgia, bringing it back into the new eyes. So there would definitely be budget surrounding that. It may be less on a per transaction scale than, like, for example, us trying to push this to Charlie D'Amelio as an example. That is a creator, that there's a person behind it, but some of these archive accounts, from what we've seen, are a little bit more niche, but they have extremely good engagement from at least the things that we've looked at. So there would definitely be budget allocated there, but we think this would be less so than some more capital intensive projects, such as what we've seen of people bringing about documentary content to bring an older artist sound into the new market, or things that are a little bit more capital intensive, like a full production music video or things like that. We think that these smaller creations are going to create good enough echoes in just the eyes of the young listener that will generate enough reoccurring revenue there through the streams.
I would just also just quickly like to add that I think that in the time of the pandemic that there have been album listening parties as a kind of communal event. And so you could kind of drum up some interest in that respect, especially among the fan communities. And then maybe kind of, if you would maybe have someone like Måneskin host a, album listening party, and then them give their perspective about why they love In Excess or why this album is so important to them, that might, bring a new audience in as well.
Thank you guys so much. That's all the time we have for questions for this group.